We'll begin today. We will start lying down, but you might just take a moment, a minute to find a little bit of movement before you come down onto the ground. You could sit or stand, or maybe you do this lying down and just find a little bit of movement, maybe some shifting, and in particular, bringing some attention to your spine. So finding a little bit of movement for your spine, maybe a cat-cow, maybe a circle of your rib cage, maybe a moving of your neck, your head, any other gentle movements that just feel good, of just intuitively sensing into your body, into your spine. And then when you feel ready to, coming down onto the ground, onto your back, setting yourself up in just a comfortable resting position. And that you could support your body with props if you'd like, maybe something under your knees. And then just take a few moments to settle, adjust, maybe wiggle a little bit. And take a couple of deep breaths as you exhale. Perhaps a gentle softening, a settling into the ground. Might just start by just taking note of how you feel this morning, how your body feels, how your mind feels, kind of the general state that's present of your mind and your heart. Notice how your breath feels expanding, maybe into your belly or your chest. You might find a gentle rhythm of your breath, if that feels good to you, just perhaps a little slower or steadier. If it's helpful, you could always rest a hand on your belly or on your chest, if that feels helpful to sense the breath in that way. You may find that it just feels nourishing. It's that gentle place of contact. And I'm going to start with a short reading from You Belong by Sebene Selassie. And she starts this passage with just a short passage from the Buddha. There is one thing that, when cultivated and regularly practiced, leads to deep spiritual intention, to peace, to mindfulness and clear comprehension, to vision and knowledge, to a happy life here and now, and to the culmination of wisdom and awakening. And what is that one thing? It is mindfulness centered on the body. And then words from Sebene. Here are 4 things I know about belonging. 1, belonging is. We cannot do or undo belonging. We belong simply because we are alive. 2, belonging is in the present moment. It does not exist tomorrow or in another location. It is right here, right now, if you choose to open to it. 3, belonging is revealed through awareness. When we cultivate the capacity to know what is happening in any moment, minus our opinion of it, then we can connect to belonging. 4, belonging is embodied. Even our most supernatural spiritual experiences are accessed through our senses. We don't find belonging by thinking about it in our heads. We can only experience belonging in these bodies. So allowing yourself to just let those words settle over you. And you might just tune in or kind of remind yourself that no matter what, no matter how you feel on a particular day, no matter how you feel today, that you belong, that there is this core experience that you belong to humanity, that you belong to nature, that you're not separate from anyone or anything. That we have our differences, but in essence, we belong to each other. And then you might begin to find a little bit of movement, just gentle movements, maybe your hands, maybe your knees, your feet. You might take a long, full body stretch, reaching your arms and legs. Taking a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, you could hug your knees in closer to your chest. If it feels okay for your neck, you could hug your head up towards your knees as well. And then you can stretch long again, reaching legs and arms away from one another. Big full body reach, big stretch. Take a deep breath in. And then exhale, knees can come in, maybe your head. You could even support your head as you rise it, as you draw it in, or leave it on the ground. Maybe one more long stretch, reaching arms and legs. Take a deep breath and then exhale in. And let your head rest on the ground. Keep your knees hugging in. You might rock gently side to side. Could circle your knees if you'd like. One direction and then the other. Maybe shifting your knees forward and back a few times. And then start to bring your feet to the ground. You can let your arms rest down by your sides. You can have your heels lined up with your sitting bones, your hips, and start to find a little bit of movement of your tailbone. So tail starts to lift, and you'll feel a gentle pressure of your lower back on the ground. You could feel your feet pressing into the floor. Maybe your hips rise up a little bit. Try to kind of like you're peeling your spine off of the ground, one little part at a time, one vertebra at a time. You don't have to lift up high. And then slowly roll down. You can let your spine melt towards the ground? How much can you articulate the different parts of your spine? And I'll invite you to do this a few times on your own. And you don't have to coordinate it with your breath. It might be slower. This movement might be actually slower than your breath. So a lot of times we inhale up and we exhale down, but just let your breath flow freely and explore how articulate can you allow the spine to be, the different parts of your spine to be. And initiating this movement from the tail as you lift. You may find as you come up and down, you rise a little bit higher each time, maybe, maybe not. Maybe one or two more times cycling through that. Just raising and lowering, really trying to meet each part of the spine to the ground one at a time, one piece at a time. And then the next time your hips come down, just resting for a moment, pausing. And then I'll invite you to stretch your legs out long, heels resting on the ground. Now this movement might not feel natural right away. So we're gonna try to find this sense of rocking through our whole body, initiated from our heels, from our ankles. So the movement is completely happening from the ankles, this like flexing and relaxing of the ankles. But as you do that, if you can allow as much of your body to be soft and relaxed as you can, there can be this rocking motion that moves up all the way through your hips. So you feel this rocking in your pelvis, through your rib cage. So there's this gentle rocking of the ribs on the ground, your sternum, all the way up to your neck and your skull. Arms can stay down by your sides. You can just watch for a moment if that's helpful to kind of figure this out. This doesn't always occur as very intuitive right away. It takes a little practice. And it may feel stiff. So you might feel, oh, I feel the movement in my ankles, but I'm not feeling a whole lot through my body. So can you maybe soften with your breath? Try to create a little more ease. Just playing with this idea of this movement kind of starting in the lower part of the body and working its way up. Maybe one more breath. And then slow it down. You can let it pause. And just notice when you pause the movement, when you find some stillness, what do you notice? What do you sense in your body? You feel some tingling, some sense of you've got some energy moving just from that simple movement. And then go ahead and wiggle your fingers and your toes, bend your knees, bring them in. Maybe take your knees in one more time. You could stretch your legs, you could circle your ankles, any other little movements, maybe a shake out of arms and legs here. And then releasing that. And we'll roll to one side and start to come up to a seated posture. So you can prop your hips up on something, maybe a folded blanket, maybe a cushion, or if you prefer, you can always sit on a chair. And I'll invite you to stretch your legs out. So if sitting with your legs straight out is not particularly comfortable, maybe you notice some tension in the lower back or in your hips, you could always bend your knees a little bit. So just have your knees a little bent. That might give a little more ease for your hips and your lower back. So wherever you want the legs to be there. Now we're going to explore just a little bit of gentle twisting of our spine. But what I'd like to invite you to explore is that the twist is initiated from the hips. So from the lower part of the spine, the pelvis, rather than a lot of times we initiate a twist like from our arms, and then our body goes along for the ride. But you could even, for right now, just have your hands on your hip points. And then starting with the left side, think of your left hip sliding back a little bit. You might even feel your left heel slide back in, and not even worrying too much about the arms or the torso. That's just going along for the ride. Your spine is going along for the ride with this twist. And then coming back to neutral. So the hip points are facing forward. And then the right side, hip slides back. Maybe your right heel slides back as well. Your spine going for the ride with that. And then back to center. And then left side. And center. So you can just start to explore this twisting and thinking of it initiated from the lowest part of your spine, initiated from your pelvis. You could add on movement of the arms if you'd like, only if that we're not trying to pull ourselves into the twist. The hand might just kind of naturally move across to the other leg. And the other invitation I have for you is, can you think of your spine as you're moving through this as really soft spine. You might coordinate that with your breath, maybe inhaling to center and then exhaling into the twist. So this might be smaller and more subtle than you're used to twisting. That's okay. Our nervous system actually really likes subtle rather than big movements. And then maybe finishing up and pause back at center. Might shift or wiggle a little bit. Just notice how your lower back is feeling, how your ribs are feeling, your spine. And then we'll move to hands and knees. We'll adjust to hands and knees. You could have the support of a blanket underneath your knees or move it aside. Spreading your fingers nice and wide. And I'll say also, I know hands and knees is not always the most comfortable. So if you wanted to do this sequence of movements, staying in a seated posture, that's fine. You can adapt or adjust the movements that we'll do to a seated position. So just take a moment to find a neutral spine. And just settle in here, feeling the floor beneath you. And you might find just a little bit of shifting or rocking of your spine, moving with your breath. So as you inhale, the crown of your head pushes forward. And then as you exhale, your tail pulls back. So crown of the head pressing forward, and then tail reaching back. Now, if you'd like to, you could add on a little more movement of your spine. So as you inhale, crown of the head reaches forward and up, tail rises. Exhale, tail reaching back, this hollowing through the front of your body, settling back. And then inhaling, reaching forward and up. Exhale, rounding. And just explore this. You might feel kind of a sense of a circular motion through the spine, through the torso. One or two more. You might come all the way back into child's pose if you'd like. Prop your head up with your hands. Take a couple of breaths here. And if child's pose is not the most comfortable for you, if you're in a seated position, you might just do a gentle forward fold, sliding your hands forward. Or if you're in child's pose, it may be that it feels better to keep your hips a little more elevated over the knees rather than sliding them back. So whatever feels best in your body. And then walk your hands forward, stretching long through both sides, tailbone reaching back. And let's walk hands slightly to the right. Tailbone stays drawing straight back. So feeling this little curve of your spine to one side, a little lateral curve. Might feel an opening through the right or the left rib cage, waist. And then taking your hands to the other side, slowly walking over to the left side. Tailbone continues to draw straight back. And deepening your breath into your right side, your waist, your ribs, shoulder. And then coming back to center. Come on up. We're going to shift to our belly. So you can, if you have a blanket under your knees, you might move that off to the side so you are not resting on anything. So coming all the way down, the tops of our feet rest on the ground. You might just bring fingertips to your hip points again, and then just kind of remind the front of your pelvis to anchor down. You could think of kind of the top of your thigh bones anchoring down into the ground, tailbone towards your heels. Hands could come under the shoulders or a little lower. And then this movement, so we'll come in and out of a cobra flow, really initiating from the top of your spine. So the crown of your head, the base of your skull, the cervical spine. So as you inhale, beginning to reach crown of the head forward and up, that carries you up into your cobra pose, Bhujangasana, and then coming down and again. Just continuing that a few times, breathing in to rise up, and breathing out to soften down. Initiating the movement from the top of the spine. Now this time, come up and stay for a few moments. And then can you think about your neck, your cervical spine as being really soft and loose? You might move it a little bit, maybe rock your head side to side. That base of the skull soft, and then releasing down, resting for a moment, and then pressing up to hands and knees and back into child's pose. You can walk your hands in close to the sides of your head. And I'll invite you to do this only if it feels okay for your neck. If you have neck issues, you might not want to do this. You could observe or you could do something different. So here I'm going to take a little bit of a rocking weight into the top of my head, and then reach back with my tailbone towards child's. And then rocking gently and shifting back. Of course, I have a bun on the top of my head and it stops my movement. And then coming back. A little gentle rocking, feeling the upper spine, and then tail reaching back, feeling the lower spine. Maybe one more time. And then rising up, come to hands and knees. So we'll come into a downward facing dog, or if for you today, half dog is better, you can choose that. So half dog being where we walk our hands forward, forehead comes down, but the knees stay down on the ground. That's a little less impactful for shoulders. So for downward dog, we'll tuck our toes, feel hands rooting down to the ground, press forward and lift hips up. Maybe keeping a little soft bend of your knees. Feel this real reach from your tailbone. And then to come down, thinking of the crown of your head, reaching forward, knees coming down slowly, and then tailbone draws you back towards child's pose. We'll come up to hands and knees. Crown of the head lifts you up. Tuck your toes, exhale, tailbone pulls you back. Inhale, crown of your head pulls you forward and slowly lowers your knees down, and then exhale, tailbone reaches back. So if you're doing this with half dog, crown of the head reaches forward. As you walk your hands forward, exhale, tail pulls back. Crown of your head reaches, coming to hands and knees. Exhale, tailbone back. So play with this, either of those two sequences. And in particular, noticing, paying attention to where does the movement initiate? What part of the spine? Can you move from your spine? So a lot of times we move through these shapes and there's a sense of moving from our extremities, our hands and our feet, our legs and our arms. So the invitation is to explore the movement coming from deeper and closer into the core of the body, that central line of energy. Closer to the spine, maybe one more time cycling through. And then resting, so whatever feels like a comfortable place for you to rest. And then we'll come up. Let's step our feet forward, come into a forward fold. You can let your arms dangle down. You might give a little shake out to your arms, your shoulders, your torso, maybe a sway side to side. And then as you inhale, start to reach the crown of the head forward and up. Long reach, and then exhale, kind of softening tailbone down, knees soften, releasing your spine. And then inhale, crown of the head reaches, you lengthen and elongate your spine. Exhale, everything softens. The tailbone softens down, crown of the head, knees soften. One more like that. Crown of your head reaches forward, elongating. And then exhale, this softening. Start to come up. You can walk your hands up your legs, bending your knees, drawing your tailbone down, rolling up through your spine, one vertebra at a time, one part of the spine at a time. Head comes up last. Maybe give a couple of shoulder rolls, shoulder shrugs, back and down. Maybe a little shake out. And then feeling the top of your head. You might even just take your hands to your head here for a moment. Feeling the crown of your head, moving your hands down to your neck. Might even give a little kind of massage in here to the base of your skull. Massaging down alongside your spine. Waking up attention and awareness to your cervical spine and all the way up into your head. And then shake that out. And so you have this awareness of the top of your head, awareness of your cervical spine. Imagine that you've got a pencil on the top of your head and see if you can draw a small figure 8. Small figure 8 with the top of your head. This does not have to be a huge movement. It might feel good to move a little bit bigger, might feel good for your neck, but also reminding yourself that sometimes our body and our nervous system likes small and subtle. Can you reverse the figure 8? Always takes me a minute to find that rhythm. Can you soften your jaw? Maybe a soft breath. And then bringing the head back to center. Now, again, initiating from the top of the head, the base of your skull, top of the spine, chin comes forward. Start to roll down slowly. So moving through the upper spine, the thoracic. You can let your arms hang and be soft. Knees can soften as you come down. So there's a rounding and a softening. And then to come up, see if you can initiate the movement from the tail. So tail draws down. You might even deepen the knee bend. Tail draws down. And then it's like you're crawling up through the lower back, through the middle back, upper back, up through the cervical spine, the neck, and then up into the top of your head. So same thing, we'll do it 2 more times. So again, initiating top of the spine, starting to roll down through the upper back, the middle back, the ribs, lower back, soften the knees as you come down. You can take this really slowly, doesn't have to be with the pace of the breath. And then to come up, tailbone first. Tailbone draws down, knees can be deeply bent. Starting to crawl up through the lower spine, the middle spine, upper back, neck, and head. Let's do it 1 more time. Chin forward. Let this be really soft. Where can you soften? Where's there gripping or tension? And then the tailbone initiates, tail down, starting to roll up through the lower back, through the middle, upper, neck, and the crown of your head. You might rock your head side to side. You might roll your shoulders back and down. Give a little shake out of everything. And let's do a little bit of movement just to raise our energy. So a little bit more energetic movement and breath together. So we'll inhale, sweep up. Exhale, dive forward. Lift halfway up. Inhale, crown of the head reaches. Exhale, softening. Inhale, sweeping. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, rise. Exhale, dive. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, fold. Sweep out and up. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, fold. Sweep out and up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Release that. Step your feet a little bit wider than your hips. And then we'll take our little bit of twisting. So rocking from one foot to the other, letting your arms flop around the sides of your body. As you do this, can you bring to mind again this image of a soft spine? Where are there places of holding or tension? Can you soften them? And then starting to slow that down and come back to center. All right, so I'm gonna move and explore a little bit of movement with our warrior one pose. I'm gonna do this straight facing you rather than from the side, which I usually do, because I wanna just talk a little bit about our alignment of hips and spine in the pose. So you'll step forward towards the front of your space, front of your yoga space. And let's start with our right foot anchored down first and left foot steps back. Lower the heel. And you get to play with the distance, kind of widening the feet or narrowing the feet that feels stable and grounded for you. When you bend your front knee, back heel stays down, so you might come in and out of that a few times. And then something to think about as we move into our warrior pose, Vera Badrasana, we usually think about our hips as really facing square on forward in this posture. But the reality is our back leg is stepped pretty far back, and there may be different areas of tension or holding, or just how the shape of our bones are, our pelvis is. There may actually be, rather than the pelvis, the hips being square, there might be just a little bit of a shift to the side, an angle. So for my hips, what feels most natural and easy is to keep just a slight angle rather than trying to pull that left hip forward. So I'm going to allow for that angle of the pelvis. So you could take your hands to your hips and just notice, are they, maybe for you, it feels really natural to keep the pelvis square forward. Maybe it doesn't. And then what we usually do to kind of compensate for that shifting of the hips is we create a little twist in the torso. So for now, we're gonna take that twist out of the torso and let our spine, our sternum, our shoulders face the same direction as our hips. And Rebecca, who I co-lead the teacher training with, calls this Warrior 1.5. So we're gonna explore Warrior 1.5 today rather than Warrior 1 or Warrior 2. So arms come down, let that shake out. We'll just move in and out of this a few times. So inhale, so we're staying on that angle of the pelvis. And then exhale, you can come out of that. And inhale, and exhale back. I'm doing this a few more times on your own. You can always adjust. And then the next time you come forward and up, just stay. Our Warrior 1.5 here. It's a little different than the shape you might normally think of when you think of Warrior 1. You let there be some breath. And then if you do want to explore kind of the wrapping the torso forward, you could take your right hand to your left ribs and just give that little wrap forward. So I'm not actually trying to like crank my hips around. I'm letting there just be just a gentle spinal twist. So my ribs wrapping around, My hips are still kind of just on that slight angle. I'm finding that just subtle wrap. And if that doesn't feel good, you can go back. And then let's exhale, release out of that. And then step the feet together. Maybe walk it out a little bit, shift your hips, maybe shake it out. And then we'll take the other side. So anchoring down through the left foot, stepping right foot back. Toes can angle out slightly. You might widen your stance to create more stability. You might bend and straighten your front knee a few times, anchoring through the back heel. And then bring your fingers to your hip points and just check it out. What is the placement? I find on this side, actually, my hips are a little more centered. So it might be different side to side. Maybe just different accumulation of tension in different areas, different places where you might be loose. So different, our bodies are not 100% symmetrical. So let your hips find the placement that just feels natural, not trying to fight against that. So it might be slightly angled. And then when you bend your knee, your front knee, keeping that slight angle, not just of your hips, but of your torso. So sternum, shoulders facing that same direction. So you can release your arms down, coming in and out a few times. Inhale, up, exhale, softening down. Inhale. And as you move through this, just allowing yourself to explore. Our yoga practice does not always have to look the same. Might explore different ways of moving your body. And we want to allow ourselves to find really what feels right in our body. We're all a little bit different. Our yoga doesn't have to be the same or look the same. So the next time you come forward and up, stay. And this may feel great. You may want to stay here in this slightly angled position. If you'd like to practice or play with that wrapping of the torso, you could take your left hand to your right ribs and give a little suggestion of a wrapping. Just seeing how that feels. Again, soft spine. Maybe you come into your warrior two or warrior one from there, arms extended. Maybe it feels better to stay slightly angled. And then releasing, stepping your feet together, giving a little shake out, maybe a shoulder shrug, rolling back and down. So let's, we'll come down to the ground. So as you inhale, sweep arms out and up, and then exhale, dive. You might take a downward dog here if you'd like, or come back to hands and knees. Might find a little bit of movement. And coming to knees. And can you find a little movement for your spine here? Maybe a cat-cow, maybe an arcing of your spine side to side, maybe a circling of your ribs. And then perhaps settling back towards child's pose. And then coming up, and we'll shift to our back. So easing down onto your back. You could draw your knees in close to your chest. You could rock gently side to side. You might stretch your legs up, circle your ankles a few times, your wrists. Maybe give a little shake out. And then placing your feet on the ground again, arms down by your sides. We'll again initiate a lifting from our tailbone first. So tail lifts, and then start to ease away from the ground, your lower spine, feeling that move up into your middle back, maybe up towards your upper back, although if you don't want to go up that high, that's okay too. And then slowly from top to bottom, so feeling that melting down of your upper back, middle, a softening down. Can you articulate even this part of the lower back? That's always harder for me. And then all the way to the tail. Maybe 2 more times, cycling through that, taking your time. You don't have to move at the pace of your breath. And last time, perhaps. And then once you come all the way down, you might walk your feet wider than your hips. You could bring your arms out side to side. And as you exhale, you could allow your knees to fall to the right. Now, take this really slowly. So as your knees start to fall, you feel your hips starting to go with that motion. You start to feel a subtle twisting moving up through your lower spine, up through the middle, your ribs. Once it comes all the way up to your neck, you could allow the twist to continue by taking your gaze to the left. And then can you initiate this with the tailbone, the lower back, drawing back, and then middle and upper. And then other side, so knees falling to the left. Notice the hips moving first, and then through the lower spine, middle, upper, and the gaze. Completing that, and then initiate tailbone or sacrum towards the ground, and then lowering to the lower back, the ribs, upper back, and neck. You can do this 1 or 2 more times. And then after this next one, just pause for a moment, rest. And then let your head rock side to side. So just your head, your neck, the uppermost part of your spine, just a gentle movement side to side. And then the next time your head rocks over to the right side, can it just really gently take you onto your side? So the rest of the spine kind of follows along. And then let your head come back towards the ground. Let the rest of the body follow. And then your gaze turns over to the left. Can you let the rest of your spine go along for the ride, rolling over to the side, and then head comes back, and slowly we come back to center. So you could do that maybe 1 or 2 more times each side. You don't have to get it right. You don't have to have this movement perfect. It's really just an exploration. So imagine that you're initiating this movement from the uppermost part of your spine. And again, moving at as slow a pace as you'd like to. You might finish up here, or if you'd like to, do it one more time. And then take a moment and notice if there's anything else your body is needing or wanting, asking for. And just take the next maybe 30 seconds to do any last things you'd like. And then as you feel ready to setting yourself up for your final relaxation pose, your Shavasana, and that could look like a traditional Shavasana, arms and legs extended. You might find your favorite restorative pose, maybe using props, maybe taking a legs up the wall pose if you have a little space. Make sure that you're warm enough, so gathering up any layers that you'd like to. Just taking this time to get cozy and fine tune your comfort. And then settling in. And you might take a hand to your chest or your belly. Breathe into it. You might just remind yourself you belong. And if you'd like to, you are welcome to stay right where you are as long as you'd like. And if you feel ready, you can begin to deepen your breath. You might find some small movements. And you could roll yourself over to one side. You might rest there for the rest of our time together. When you feel ready to, you can come up to a seat. Here are 4 things I know about belonging. 1, belonging is. We cannot do or undo belonging. We belong simply because we are alive. 2, belonging is in the present moment. It does not exist tomorrow or in another location. It is right here, right now, if you choose to open to it. 3, belonging is revealed in awareness. When we cultivate the capacity to know what is happening in any moment, minus our opinion of it, then we can connect to belonging. 4, belonging is embodied. Even our most supernatural spiritual experiences are accessed through our senses. We don't find belonging by thinking about it in our heads. We can only experience belonging in these bodies. So if you'd like to, you could either bring hands together in front of your heart, or you might take your hands to your heart or your belly in a gesture of just connecting. You might repeat those words to yourself right now or throughout your day as a reminder or a mantra. You belong. And you can take a deep, full breath in and a deep releasing breath out. Thank you for your practice today.